April this year of 2024, I DM'd Grummz. He was making posts about the financials in gaming and their bloated budgets, how the expenditure far outpaced the profits, and this no longer made sense or was a viable business strategy in the AAA gaming scene. I wholeheartedly agree with the premise and reached out to see if he'd come on a gaming podcast to talk about the landscape of budgeting and development for gaming. He respectfully declined, as he was too busy to be going on live streams for the foreseeable future, only to go on other streams of much larger YouTubers. It's okay, I understand. Being such small fry, we're not quite worth the time because we can't give the exposure many desire when being guests on podcasts. So I left it at that and continued to see post after post after post by Grummz on my timeline, mainly pertaining to jawlines and ugly female character models in games. This has been quite the common theme, and it blew him up in engagement, stream features, and following. So naturally, he double triples down on such a venture. However, he makes a few slip-ups. He makes a few questionable tweets, talking about how he's for cancel culture so long as it's his political enemies. Gaming takes that are just complete fails.
Names the game Assassin's Creed Shadows, invoking racist overtones. The word shadows is racist overtones. We've gone full fucking clown world.
And this got me just that bit more interested in this Grummz character. Eventually, I noted that he is developing an indie game. Well, I love indie games. I wholly believe the future of gaming is in indie developers that are currently producing phenomenal titles. I'm in many discords in order to keep up to date and know exactly when their titles will drop so I can be there on the ground floor. The game was titled Ember, EM8-ER, with a premise that it was to be a mech versus kaiju game. Sounds pretty good, right? Well, what I found was not good. For the months I lurked there, I saw demands for updates, complaints on the game, and even one user, Gatestrider Spew, yelling into the void for a month about servers being down, until he finally started tagging community managers sick of no answer from the relevant chats to report this. I lurked, checked forums, and even tried to get into the Ember website. Well, I got no luck with the website because it refused to ever even send me the email verification, and I was stuck in an infinite loop of requesting email verifications, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. We've now reached a breaking point on Twitter calling this all out, where I've been blocked by Grummz and kicked from the Discord. Well, I'm here now to let you beautiful viewers know everything that has been uncovered. But to do so, we need to set the scene. As Grummz very loudly and often claims, he worked at Blizzard for 8 years in 1997 to 2005, serving as associate producer, and then team lead for the subsequent games StarCraft, Diablo 2, and World of Warcraft. Quite the resume in game development, right? Well, I looked up these job listings. For associate producer, you oversee development plans and strategies, communicate plans confidently with stakeholders across the business, fostering partnerships and meaningful relationships with stakeholders across the business, including marketing, deployment, testing, and support teams, ensure all content is at the expected quality standards, possess a keen ability to develop and enhance processes for convenience and efficiency of the development pipeline. Okay, how about the producer? Well, on Career Explorer, it explains the duties and responsibilities are as follows. Project management, overseeing the overall development process, including scheduling, budgeting, and resource allocation. Team leadership, providing leadership and direction to the development team. Working closely with game designers and other creative team members to help shape the overall vision and direction of the game. Communication and coordination, serving as the main point of contact between different departments within the studio, as well as external partners such as publishers or licensors. Identifying potential risks and challenges that could impact the development process or success of the game. And business development, collaborating with stakeholders to develop and execute business strategies for the game. And finally, a team lead. What do they do exactly? Distribute tasks and follow up on the progress of the various projects. Provide your team with the tools they need to work independently. Meet individually with each member of your team to discuss performance. Communicate regularly with leads in other disciplines to plan ahead. Code alongside your team members. Keep your project lead informed of the progress of your assignments and meet with other leads, both on your project and others, to discuss ways to improve processes and share technologies. So now we've got all that out of the way, what can we surmise? That these roles are just purely managerial positions, not so much hands-on development, with the exception of a team lead. However, I have my doubts such a senior role would be down there in the coding mines grafting away. All of this is to say, his tenure at Blizzard may not be as prestigious as he makes it out to be. I'm not here to talk down these roles and the potential value producers and team leads provide, but the rest of the team leads and producers out there don't act like they could make entire games on their own now, do they? After leaving Blizzard in 2005, Grummz and 3 other ex-employees decided to co-found the company Red5 Studios. Well, it wasn't going great. After 4 years of no announcements other than the closing of a Shanghai office and firing of 30 people, they got the Chinese company The9 to invest and buy a majority stake into the game. It wasn't until 5 years after the inception of Red5 Studios that they finally announced a game in 2010. Firefall, an MMO open world shooter. It was also at the end of 2010 that Marky Mark Grummzy became CEO of the company. I do need to note the fact that at this point the 3 other co-founders had left and he was the most senior role at that point. 3 years later, in 2013, it was the legendary Firefall bus incident. I trust you're all keenly aware of the bus, but to quickly touch on it, under Mark's direction, he spent $3 million for Pimp My Ride's West Coast Customs to create a promo bus in order to market the game. This came late and over budget, according to the Yahoo article, and Mark himself said it was not a good venture. However, did you also know for this portable gaming bus, they announced esports tournaments alongside it with a prize of $1 million? This was on August 15th, 2013. Literally not a month later, on September 12th, 2013, they canned the esports and PvP entirely. No team ever got paid for the prize pool. In December that same year, Grummz was fired. Internal company emails detailed how the board of directors voted him out of the position of CEO, effective immediately. 8 years of development, and the game had not launched yet.
In the business, we call this foreshadowing.
I can see why he was fired. Under new leadership, the game was pretty much forced out the door in order to try and recoup some funds back from the millions of dollars already sunk into the project. In The9's case, $100 million on marketing alone. Yeah, it failed. After middling reviews and barely a functioning player base, the studio shut down after its one and only game. However, that was not all that was revealed. We find our prestigious CEO had many developers and Glassdoor reviews that Wikipedia describes as erratic. Well, it was a little bit more than that, my friends. Glassdoor reviews came pouring in against the man, and these mostly corroborated these anonymous reviews. Quote, he would swoop in one afternoon and berate a series of features several teams had spent months on, declaring they begin again and listen to what he told them to do. He'd be back in a few days to see if it was done. This crushed morale and forced people into spontaneous, isolated crunch mode. He would shout and scream his perspectives. He would ignore anything that didn't fit his immediate viewpoint, which was subject to sudden, violent changes. He would rage email people in the small hours of the night or on weekends. He would spout bile and vitriol to the point where he gave some employees access to a safe word. This was in case he was being particularly verbally abusive. Someone could yell it out or email it to him and he would clam up. He had the misguided notion that he could write quality fiction and would force feed it to members of the writing team. He's fired people on the spot, berating and screaming at them publicly. He's thrown temper tantrums and objects around the office. What a prick. This supports my guesses that Grummz' role in Blizzard was not that hands-on. While some industry experts tell me that the producer roles are variable on whether or not they are indeed programmers, coders, or in some way have direct involvement in a game's project's development, we see here that he was not only unwilling to assist in the development, he was an outright hindrance, with unrealistic expectations and total scraps of weeks or months worth of work just to do it again. This one's a complete anomaly. In 2014, Grummz was credited to co-founding Mech Entertainment, its goal being to create a VR Minecraft-like game designed for the Oculus Rift. It was given $1 million in seed funding. That's it. That's all Grummz' involvement in the project was. After some searching, you'd find that this was for a game called Voxel Notes, but at this point, Grummz was nowhere to be found. The project became complete vaporware. It's been reported that Grummz was booted for misappropriating funds and giving it to friends. It can't be verified as true, but it was reported by people within the company, which is for sure a cause for concern and raises eyebrows. Because now, finally, we get to Grummz' latest venture. Titled Ember, spelt E-M-8-E-R, It was proposed to be a spiritual successor to Firefall. His proposition was no longer with seed funding. I can imagine why. But with crowdfunding. And the way he planned to do this was in an undefined set of milestones. Not milestones in the way you and I know, with extra goodies the more over the goal a single campaign gets, but milestones in that it would be an undefined number of multiple crowdfunding campaigns via Indiegogo to fund different stages of development. The first milestone was launched around July 2016, asking for £381 for a set of forums, a website, and concept art. It achieved this and more, getting £2,336. It was delivered, but its website is not that great. I still can't log in to this day when I was trying to create an account. The second milestone came not too long after, in October 2016, asking for £3,810 and raising £17,795. This one was to fund for creating a 3D model of the Thumper robot, an NPC that was to be a resource miner. And it's at this point I'm noticing a trend. Are we really to expect that there was to be a milestone for every such small-scale part of development? A crowdfunding campaign for a website, one for a 3D model, one for music, one for animations, one for other models, one for a demo? There was, at the time especially, no such set-in-stone end goal or defined set number of campaigns until the game was finally fully funded to be made. This is where it starts getting extremely suspect to me. It starts to look like a never-ending printer of money that Grummz could string backers along with. Finally, milestone 3, asking for £15,240 in September 2017. Wait, Q3 2017? A whole year since the last one? Okay. But yes, this third milestone was asking to raise money for a litany of things this time, including some playable characters, animations of those characters, scripting and coding, shooting mechanics, and clothing. Well, this one raised so much more, reaching a high of £81,892. And as such, this milestone had many, well, milestones. One of which asked that if they reached $60,000, they would have enough to develop and put out a fully playable mock-up demo. This demo was promised to be delivered within 6 months from the campaign, with a final full campaign launched 2 months after that. This has not been achieved. For the past 6 years, Grummz has been developing this mock-up demo for backers. As far as I can tell, it wasn't until 2 years later in 2020 did this demo finally drop, with only one major update 4 years later in 2024 that achieved next to no major changes, much to the ire of backers. And what exactly does this demo look like after 6 years of development and over $130,000 of backers' money?
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Abysmal. Let's review. Basic Unreal Engine 5 running animations on these Omniframe mechs still as a placeholder. Flight that looks like it was a pre-bought asset from the Unreal Engine store. Playable characters looking, well, look at them. So many enemy types are just placeholder textureless blocks that slide towards the player. An incomprehensible mess of effects and shit on the screen that confused many viewers as to what exactly is the goal of this game. This is, from indie developers and industry veterans themselves, not a project that looks to be worked on for 6 years with hundreds of thousands backing this. And it's actually somewhat true. Mark has not spent 6 years developing this demo. For 2 of those years, he went radio silent on backers who were still sending him money monthly, and it was only when they finally got fed up and said they were pulling funding, he came back.
But they say, Mark, you had 2 years off, and progress has stopped in the game. We're not going to back your next milestone unless you come up with something. So I said, you're right.
To give the reason that his family was sick, and that's why he was gone, and now he's back to provide consistent updates. I don't buy it. Members of his family may very well have been ill, but to not update the backers and just coast on their money for 2 years with not a peep of news or reassurances to these people, I think it's an excuse. Oh, what's this I hear? $130,000 is not a lot of money, especially over 6 years? I hear you, except there are a multitude of indie games well into development that overshadow Ember who haven't raised anywhere close to that amount yet, including another solo developer, Firefall's spiritual successor, that has done leaps and bounds more in just 1 year. And there is more money that I have not accounted for. Oh yes, dear viewer. Grummz has set up his own subscription service using his own custom-built payment processor. He keeps 100% of that revenue. It has ranged anywhere from 900 to 1,500 subscribers paying $7.99 a month. So this man has been pulling in since 2018 anywhere from $7,191 to $11,985 a month. $86,000 to $143,000 a year since 2018. On top of this very comfortable monthly wage, he also added in special founders packs ranging from $15 all the way to $1,500, given the promise of goodies if, not when, the final game launches. And he sells skins. Remember the store citizens selling PNGs meme? Yeah, it's that. But ever since the lead artist he freelanced is no longer on the project and has not been for some time, he now sells images that are clearly AI generated. These PNG skins and founders packs are not transparent in how much funding they have raised towards the development of this demo, let alone the game. None of us can even guess, as we have no idea how many buyers there are for the PNGs or founders packs. It was at about here I started reaching the point to collect evidence and script a video to talk this through. Then McDizzle Gaming happened. He beat me to the punch, creating a series of videos showcasing this complete irresponsible mismanagement of money, lack of meaningful development, and total lack of transparency regarding the funds that backers have raised for this project. However, McDizzle also found 2 bits of information that I didn't even conceive of. It's now been revealed that Grummz has a tax lien levied against him by the state of California for $265,133 of unpaid taxes. This lien was dated in January 2016. You guys remember the date of the first Ember Indiegogo campaign? June-July 2016. That's right, just 6 months after being told he owed $265,000 of unpaid taxes, he starts collecting crowdfunding campaigns for a company not registered in his name. You heard that right. Not only did McDizzle Gaming find out that he owed a shit ton of money to the government, he registered Crixter Labs, the company making Ember, in someone else's name. This registered CEO is a 78-year-old woman who shares Grummz's last name. I'll let you Sherlock Holmes your way to figuring out who that may be. This Mrs. Grummz Senior, CEO of Crixter Labs, has no credit or involvement in Ember whatsoever. That is huge. Need I remind you, it is arguably a criminal offense to register a CEO who has no involvement in the company in order to circumvent debts that senior roles or the real owner would owe. So here is where we're currently at. It's an embarrassing project that Grummz does not like people seeing run in real time without copious amounts of editing done on it. Glaring red flags on the financials and budget of the project, with a tax lien looming overhead as a forever elephant in the room. Since being blocked by Grummz and booted out of the Ember Discord, I've also felt extremely compelled to make a video and throw my hat in the ring alongside McDizzle and Upper Echelon. These facts of the matter need to be made known to potential backers. He consistently gets hosted on podcasts like Side Scrollers, Yellow Flash's Flashcast, and Ginger Prime's podcast, bringing in a whole new audience of people discovering Grummz who could go on to try and support him during this whole culture war cringe nonsense that has been happening. They deserve a right to know. However, this last part is for Grummz himself. There's only one way out of this by my standards, mate. Release a transparent itinerary of where the funds were allocated. How exactly have the hundreds of thousands of dollars raised been spent? I and many others would love to know.